Okay, so if it wasn't already obvious, we got a bit of a new look here at Chess on Ice. I added some overlays. I'm going to be able to do more newsy stuff, more interviews, reacting to video that I can put on screen, that sort of thing. And I think that's a good direction for the channel to go in. As you know, I've been trying to grow this for a while. And that's kind of content that was hard to do without some of this extra artwork, extra pizzazz that we're going to have now. So why am I doing this now? No particular reason to do it in June, but I want to be ready for the fall when, obviously there'll be a lot more interest in curling, a lot more news to go over. But believe it or not, there's actually some pretty significant curling news happening right now in June. A championship in a country that's very relevant to the international curling scene. And not something in the Southern Hemisphere you might expect that. I know Australia had their championship recently, makes a lot of sense, right? Heading into winter there. No, this is actually in South Korea, which despite being called South Korea is in the Northern Hemisphere, which means they're heading into summer, but they just had their national championship for men and women last week. Now, if you're a casual curling fan, you might not realize that Korea is a relevant country when it comes to world curling affairs, particularly on the women's side of the game. So we'll start there. So even if you don't watch a lot of curling, you just watch Worlds, you're going to probably be familiar with the Unji Gim rink. Apologies for my pronunciation of these names, by the way. I'm trying my best. If I get anyone wrong, particularly in the first names, the family names pretty well established because we hear them all the time in curling, but if I mess up some of the other stuff, apologies, feel free to correct me on those. But the Gim rink won several events last year, won a Grand Slam event, won the Pan-Continental Championship, which is essentially the championship for everyone outside of Europe. We really only have two regions in curling right now, Europe and everyone else. So they won that one, and then went on to win bronze at the Worlds. They're also a team that gave 2 of the 7 losses to the Homan rink in their incredible season last year. So this is a real deal team, a team that you have to know about and have to respect. And they certainly came in as the favorites to win the Korean Championship this year. DoubleTakeout.com, which is the site I would recommend you use if you're looking for like a really serious look at rankings of who are the best teams in the world. The rankings that are used, the World Curling Federation's rankings, are not awful, but they have some holes, and they're not really designed to pick out analytically the best teams. They award points based on performance. There's a huge boost for making the playoffs, which can cause some weird results compared to a more analytical system. But DoubleTakeout.com is run by Ken Pomeroy, and if you're a college basketball fan, you may very well know KenPom.com, one of the best analytical sites out there for college basketball. Got into curling, I believe, during the pandemic, and Ken does some really serious, deeply analytical rankings of curling teams on tour now. And in this case, not much of a difference. The Gim rink is number 3 in the world on the World Curling Federation's rankings, number 3 on the DoubleTakeout.com rankings too. But in any case, serious team, came in as the favorite. And the final 3 were kind of what you'd expect because Korea does have some depth here on the women's side, even at the elite world level. Gim's toughest competition was going to be the Kim rink, which I believe is 6th right now in DoubleTakeout.com. Beat them in the semifinals. It was a page playoff. So the biggest surprise, by the way, for the Gim rink is they lost 2 games early, which kind of dropped them in the 3-4 page, but got out of that in the true semifinal, beat the Kim rink, and then had to play the Ha rink in the final. Now, the Seonyoung-ha team, also well-known, top 25 team in the world for sure, but certainly came into this final as an underdog, managed to take the game to an extra end where they didn't set up a ton of stuff. By the time we got to the skip rocks, there were no center guards or anything. By the way, There was coverage of this online. For most of the event, you could watch the games through a YouTube channel, Curling One Spoon, which I'll link in the description. But that channel did not have coverage of the finals. I don't know if that's for rights deals, TV deals, whatever. I imagine it's something like that. And I thought maybe I wouldn't be able to do this video because I wouldn't even get to watch the finals. I didn't want to just comment based on, the score lines on Curling Zone or whatever. But then it turned out there was another channel that popped up with videos of like the last 6 ends or so of both the women's and men's championship games. MBC Sports Plus. Coverage is entirely in Korean, including all the graphics. There's no anglicized names or anything. But it was still a great way, after already knowing the results, to go back and see how these games played out. So we get to the final end of this game, and the Ha rink can't really set anything up for the skip rocks. They do have one rock in the top of the forefoot, while Gim has a rock, biting the side of the button, counting. And Ha decides to play a sensible shot here, a little tap up, taps their rock up to the button, kicking the Gim rock a little bit out to the side of the forefoot. And that sets up a situation where if it had been just slightly better, if they had slightly moved the Gim rock further, this would have required a kind of a tough double to win, or at least a missable double. But instead, the way the rocks were set up, Gim was able to just hit the top rock into the second one, and when everything was left standing, the dust cleared, the original Gim rock that was on the side of the forefoot was the counter, giving them a 6-5 win in extras. That means Gim will get to go to the Worlds, the Pan-Continental, all that again as the Korean representative, and of course they're going to be a threat to win every event they're in. Now on the men's side, the Korean teams are not really at that world-class level yet. Does not mean they're not relevant at all. They've had good success in regional championships, that sort of thing. You're not going to see these teams fighting for medals most likely at the men's worlds or the Olympics coming up in 2026. However, that doesn't mean there weren't favorites going into the event. The Park Jeonduk team, the Park rink, a top 50 team. DoubleTakeout.com has them at 44th in the world. Not really a very successful team against elite teams in the world, but they had played a lot against those top teams, especially compared to any other men's team in the Korean field. And they did have one win against Brad Gushu at the Pan-Continental, where they ended up finishing in second, winning the silver medal. You might remember that Gushu was not very happy with the conditions of the Pan-Continental, and I'm not sure if that particular game and that loss had anything to do with that, but certainly it was a huge win for the Park rink, their highlight for their season, and winning a silver at the Pan-Continental, obviously no joke. So they came in as the favorite. But by the time they got to the final, they had an interesting team they had to play in that last game. They were matched up against a young team, the Lee Jae Boom team. Again, sorry for the pronunciation. But the Lee rink, while not ranking anywhere even in the top 100 in the world, did have some international pedigree in that they represented Korea in men's junior worlds back in 2022. And they put in a solid representative performance, went 4-5 in that event. Certainly not a team that was really on the radar, though, on the world stage. Well, they had a heck of a game against the Park rink, back and forth action. In the 7th end of this 10-end game, Lee's already up 3-2. And Park makes a draw to like the back 8 in an attempt to at least cut them down to 2, where Lee's going to have a draw for 2. But instead, Lee decides to come all the way around everything, make a little tap on that drawn rock, and makes it for 3. Now it's 6-2, going to the 8th. you imagine this young Lee team is just smelling victory here. But as anyone who's played in any sport, any competition knows, you're going up against a defending champion and the best team in the field. They're likely to not make it easy on you. They're likely to make a run late. And sure enough, Park comes back and sets up an end where there's at least some danger. Lee has to make a downweight hit through a little port to try to force or maybe hold Park to a small end instead of a big end, and jams the hit. And that still left Park with a tough shot, but he makes an incredible thin double, takes the 3 right back, and now it's 6-5 with 2 ends to play. And, you know, for a young team that has not had high-level international success, that could have been a tough spot to put them in. But they came roaring back in the 9th, and wouldn't you know it, Lee's left with not the exact same shot, but kind of a similar shot where he has to make this downweight, precise hit with a relatively narrow port to work with to clip the only Park rock out the side of the house, kind of out through the center of the house really, but at an angle. And he makes this shot 4-4, making it 10-5, getting Park to concede right away going into the 10th end down 5. And we saw the most exuberant celebration from the Lee rink. Awesome stuff to see. This is a young team that's going to be exciting to see at the Pan-Continental and hopefully at Worlds. You would expect Korea is going to be a very strong favorite to qualify through the Pan-Continental for Worlds as well. It means, hey, we're going to have a young, exciting team, even if they're not super successful at Worlds. You know, the Park rink went, I believe, just 2-10 last year. Definitely finished towards the bottom of the standings at Worlds. Hey, who knows? Maybe a young Lee team, motivated, can catch some teams by surprise, do a little better. Certainly, the Korean men are capable of doing better than they did at Worlds last year. So a really exciting event. I don't know how much more there's going to be to talk about in terms of curling news this summer, but I'll be here if there is anything. And as I said, when we get to the fall, this will really ramp up. And a final word before I sign off. Happy Juneteenth to everyone in the United States. Outside of the U.S., you may not have heard of this holiday. Newly became a federal holiday, but celebrated for a very long time in some parts of the United States. The short version is it commemorates the end of slavery in the United States. So obviously a worthy addition to the pantheon of federal holidays here in the United States. There is a little bit more to it than that, and look into it if you're not familiar with it. Very important holiday with a long history here in the U.S. So happy day off for everyone here in the United States. And hope everyone out there in the curling world is having a great summer, a great off season. And you know, before you know it, we're gonna be back to curling, or at least back to talking about the curling season coming up. Happens faster than you think.